Hey y'all, so coming back for part 2. Now, I did move this onto a tray with some parchment paper over the tray just to protect the tray. Tray came from Hobby Lobby. It's just like a lunch tray or a dinner tray. They are so handy because they're sturdy. Gonna put some gloves on. I just wanted to be able to move that out of our space when we're mixing, and then if at some point I need to move the coasters off, I can. Actually, I am going to pull out another tray because we are going to have to move those coasters off. And we're going to have to move them off onto their own and not be sitting on that silicone mold tray. So I'm going to grab another little sheet of parchment paper. I have silicone mats, but I actually do now think I know where they are. I couldn't find them when I was originally prepping the other tray, so I just parchment paper will work. And honestly, if something got on these trays, it wouldn't. If resin got on it, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I do kind of want to protect it because I use it for puzzle pieces sometimes if I have a real big puzzle. So, alright, we are going to mix up some Counterculture DIY Thin Viscosity. You'll notice my B is a little yellow. If you haven't watched tutorials by me before, I always put some fancy tape on my lids to mark that this is the Thin Viscosity versus the regular artist resin and different various viscosity resins so that I'm not mixing, so I know I have the right bottles. We probably are going to need to mix a pretty decent amount here today, just because we are going to be doing a pour over and we're doing different colorants and so forth. So I'm going to do 2 cups and then we'll go into a big cup, but my big cup is so dirty. Let me find another big cup. There we go. I had to do a little moving around of my things so that I could do that. I'm going to do 60 of each. I think that should be plenty. Probably be more than enough. So when I'm doing the bigger batches here, it doesn't matter when I'm pouring into the small ones which one I do first, because ultimately they're not getting put in the same container just yet. That might end up being just a tad over 60. So we may have to go a tad over for, yep, that's going to end up being almost 65. That is the other advantage if you are pouring into separate cups, that you can really make sure that you get the same amount. This is a 1:1, so 1:1 ratio. In volume, not weight. So make sure you read your resin, follow the directions of how it needs to be mixed. But Counterculture DIY Artist Resin Thin Viscosity is 1:1. Now I ended up with a little over, I ended up with almost 70 on this one. No, I ended up with like 67, 66, 67. Let's just pour a smidge off. I should have almost poured more B into the B cup. That would have probably made more sense. A is pretty thick, especially because I don't give it a warm bath before we start. So it definitely is thicker. Now we're settling in more even. Okay. So I'm gonna put those back in my thing where I keep them so that I can make sure that it's out of our way. Now, when I go to pour into my bigger container, I always start with B. B is thinner and very fluid, and it's easier to get in and kind of coats my cup. And then I transfer my A in, and A is going to be a whole heck of a lot thicker, and therefore can stick to the cup. So this way I'm kind of coating my mixing cup with B first, put A in it, and if I pour A kind of in the center, what's going to happen is B's going to surround it, and that's going to help me mix it better. Now, each person does their own system. I have tried both ways. I've done A first, poured B in, and mixed, and then I have done this way, and I did both ways a couple times just to make sure that I really knew which one I liked better, and I definitely like B first, then A. Now the pink stick that I have, it's just like a big popsicle stick, except it is plastic, so it is reusable, meaning as long as I clean it good, I'll be able to use it again. The other thing is wood popsicle sticks do have air in the wood, and so it can add bubbles to your resin as you're mixing, and so this will help avoid those bubbles being added. Now we're going to end up with bubbles as we mix, just part of it. I don't stress about them. I know some people are like, I have so many bubbles. I'm like, don't stress over it. It's gonna be fine. Gonna be fine. Oh, somebody's mowing. I couldn't tell because my headset on. I was like, what is that noise? Okay, so slow and steady mixing. I could have pulled out our mixer, but I decided I would hand mix for this one. So round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows. No. Basically, I'm trying to keep my stick to the bottom of my cup, and I every so often will go all the way around the edges. Now, I want to show y'all something. So, it's very milky looking in there. You can see strings on it. This is not ready at all. You want to get this mixed where it's like clear and smooth. So, people say, well, how do we know? Well, that's how you know. The consistency and the look. Making sure there's no like little stringy white things. And I know that maybe doesn't make sense if you haven't worked with resin before like this. But I promise you, once you start mixing, you'll totally understand what I'm saying. Now, A is a little bit thick today. I didn't think this through. Yesterday was so warm. It was real rainy here, and last night it dipped down. Goodness gracious. So it's a little cool in the workspace. I probably should have put the heater on because this is really thick. Let me get a paper towel and wipe off my glove here so that I can grab my heat gun. I'm gonna blast with a little heat, just to, not too crazy, but just to get us a little something going. I was like, okay, I know that I kept my heat gun close, but I also had found this new spot to hang it from. So I was like, where's that spot at? I found it. I found it. Okay. It's just a counterculture DIY. It's a little heat gun, hand heat gun. Nothing crazy. Let's give us a little bit of heat in here. I don't want too much because if we heat up our resin too fast, it's going to start doing its chemical reaction and definitely will get, but because it's so, that A is so thick, it's creating a lot of air bubbles, more than it normally would. It's just because it's so thick right now. So, but again, I'm not overly worried. I just got to get it mixed. I should have used our mixer because my hands are getting tired, my wrists. So at this point I'm not really trying to avoid bubbles because guess what? We've got a lot of bubbles happening. Air bubbles. Because what was happening with that A resin being so, part A being so thick and like chilled because it was so thick from the cold, it just was almost creating like if you have kids and your kids make slime, they roll it out and like make an air pocket. That's kind of what was happening as I mixed it. Now it's better. Okay, let's see if I can show y'all this. It's a little bit hard to see because we do have so many bubbles, but the resin doesn't have the wispy stringy stuff in it anymore. It's just the bubbles. So that's what we want essentially, is to get it to that consistency. Okay, now this is just a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol on it. Let's get our tray, and I'm just going to stack this tray on top of the other. It's fine for now. We can do that. So forth. I'm going to move this in just a little. Okay. So for this first part, I want to get resin like a clear layer on everything. So I am going to, I know I'm wearing a glove already, but I am going to, these come with a lot of resin projects, these big thin gloves that are like worth nothing. But rather than waste a good glove spreading the resin on with a finger, I'm going to put this big thing on, get it spread on, and then I'll just peel that off and have my regular glove. So essentially what I want to do, and I know there's a lot of bubbles, but again, I'm not worried about that at this stage because we're going to be doing so much with it. I'm just going to get a little bit put on each one, and then I'm going to pick them up, and I'm going to make sure that I spread that resin. This is why I don't like these gloves, because they're so big. You just can't even keep them on your fingers. I just want that resin to be across the entire coaster, basically, if that makes sense. So just to give us like a base to work with. It will also give some fluidness to our colorant when we add it. It will allow us to not be using our colored resin to try to make more of a fluid. It's just giving us a base. So again, not worried about those bubbles because look, just by me spreading this out, most of those air bubbles are popping on their own. We add a little bit of heat to it, a little spritz of rubbing alcohol, that's going to be done. This glove is a hot mess. We are taking it off and throwing it straight into the garbage. Like, get that off of me. Okay. Cool. So, I'm going to hit them with a little bit of heat. Pop what surface bubbles we can. And then, like I said, it's not going to need much. Make sure to keep your heat gun kind of moving as you go across them. And that one's not very stable and it's cut. That's okay. And as you saw, I wasn't worried if it ran off the edges and started dripping off. I tried to not go too crazy with too much on there, just because I don't want to waste a ton of resin by making it go down. But I also wanted to give us a good base coat, so. Alright, now we're going to make some colorants. And it's going to be a little tricky because our camera space is very limited. So I'm going to try to kind of go probably over here or bring it up here when I'm mixing it. But essentially I want to make, let's see, I've got 2 micas, 2 alcohol inks, 2 dispersions, and 1 armor. and then cast and craft is going to be our other one. So we've got 8 different colorants that we're going to be doing. Essentially. Okay. Let's move some things around. Right. Okay, see, I'm going to pour the resin into these little cups, these little mixing cups for us, because we're going to mix our colorants in them and not in anything silicone, because it's going to just dye our silicone. And I'm weird about that. So these are just disposable medicine cups. You can buy a big pack of them on Amazon. I didn't want to use my paper cups because we're not going to be mixing a ton of color in these, just some colorant. So I didn't want to use a full paper cup, but I tend to use those paper cups. And we're not really going to be drawing like shapes per se on these. We're going to be more doing lines and such. And I'm not like, as you can see, it's not an even, everyone has the same amount in the cup, and that's fine. I'm not worried about everybody having the exact same. Now, I still have a little bit of clear in here, and I'm going to keep that in this cup. It's not much, but it is something, and as long as we do well working time, we'll be okay. And I'll make sure to use that. I'm just going to hit them with a little faster heat, a little stronger heat, and so forth. Okay, so I always want to put you want to put your resin in first before your colorant, because if you put your colorant in first, you especially with micas, you'll end up having a mica powdery area. This is a beautiful Let's Resin Chameleon powder in teal. And then I have a gold here. It's called Sunset Gold. Sorry, I keep bumping this light. I gotta get that. I'm liking where that light is positioned. It's just not set up correctly yet. And these are little stir sticks from Counterculture DIY that are fantastic. But if you had put, now these colorants you could add into your container first, and then, you know, and then add the resin, but they tend to get stuck at the bottom if you do that. This one might be jammed. It might be more solid. So, yep, it is. This one was kind of drying out when I bought it. Still usable. Well, maybe not much usable at this point. It's definitely not liquid form. But it's so pretty. We'll see if we can make it work. If not, we'll go to plan B with that one. We'll see if we can make that work. I'm going to have to toss that. Armor Art. Oh, this one might be solid too. Goodness. This is the problem if you buy so much craft stuff and then don't use it, you know, like, oh yeah, it is hard as a rock in there. Okay, we might not do that one. Oh yeah, because it's like bending my stir stick. I'm going to try one more thing. Let's not use that one. Oops, this light is going to fall. Yeah. Hard as a rock. Not coming out. Okay. Let's replace it. Well, let's just keep going. We don't have a ton of time to work with our stuff, so I'm like, let's make sure that we don't lose our resin trying to replace one color, essentially. These are alcohol inks. These are Bria Reese alcohol inks, which is what I'm using. And then Casting Craft. I can hear it shaking up, so. Oh, come on. It doesn't take much of this, but it's so hard to get out. Come on. I have to be careful to not dip my watch tassels into the resin too. Okay, that should be enough. And then let's throw, I kind of feel like I need another purple, but also feel like a blue would be nice. Oh yeah, because that, okay, like I said, let's not get too focused. Okay, so this one is a little interesting because I chose to do it first just to see if we'll get enough. I'm trying to break up the clumps. It's definitely given us color, which is nice. But trying to break those clumps up so that we don't have clumpiness happening, which looks not terrible. Okay, it's not stellar great, but you know, not terrible. Making sure with our mica powder that we keep that powder within so that we don't lose it onto our project. And again, mixing fully in, because if you don't mix mica all the way in, like cake batter, you'll end up with a dry spot. Not fun. We don't want a dry spot. So round and round we go, round and round. This is really a pretty color. All these are pretty, but I'm really liking this. Okay, need another few stir sticks here. Good thing I have a lot of them. That dispersion color like settled on the bottom, but look how pretty this is coming. Like, ooh, that's so pretty. Wow, I love that. Tsunami is that one, and it is stunningly gorgeous. I might want a little more of that purple in there. It's giving off a little orangey, a little too neon. Let that set for just a second. And you want to mix, because if you don't, even though like the alcohol ink is a fluid and you're mixing into a resin that's a fluid, the colorant is sitting on top. So you would end up with uneven container colorant. You want that mixed in. So like we don't want to leave that because it's not mixed. And we want that to fully mix in. It's definitely a neon purple. Not sure I'm loving it. Not for certain. Let's add just like a drop of crimson into it. Okay, 2 drops of crimson into it, just to kind of try to darken that a little bit. And now we became more pinky, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I'm gonna then decided for our other, we're gonna do a true purple violet for that one. All right, as you notice, I'm kind of hustling and bustling because I know that we got to get these working so that they don't, you've got limited amount of time, essentially. I never set a timer. I just kind of know based on the feel. So far, these aren't feeling hot or anything on the edges of the cups, which is good. But I can definitely tell that the resin is thickening, which obviously you want it to do because it's supposed to harden. But we don't want it to go so fast that we don't get to work with it. So that's what I'm trying to make sure that we don't hit that point. Oh yeah, that's pretty. It looks almost brown on top, but when we bring it up, it's definitely purple. So I am going to basically do a few different options with these. But with this one, I'm just going to go across with my purple. And I'm going to just kind of keep doing that with the different colorants. It's being a little bit messier than I like to be, but that's okay. Oh, that gold touch is a beautiful touch right there. And this blue is so pretty. And I'm not worried if I'm dripping on the tray below, because guess what? We're expecting that to get fully covered, or at least a base started. I'm not worried about dripping down on it because, you know, we're gonna be doing that. So basically, I'm just trying to alternate some colors and materials here. I like putting the gold in between. And we're just kind of, you know, no, like, I didn't come in with a, oh, this is the exact look I'm going for. More just experimenting. Oh, dripped purple right in it. Oh, this one feels a little hot. Oh, it got really crimson. Those 2 drops of crimson. Really did it. Okay, what color should I go with over here? Let's do a little bit of pink. And let's add a little bit of the gold in between, like that. I'll let that sit before we start blowing it around, essentially. I'm going to take this watch off. It's making me nervous. Okay. So then I'm going to do another one that is like that we're doing kind of the back and forth liney kind of side of things. And I know I didn't put casting craft on that one, and I don't plan to probably at this point. It's going to be on these other 2 that I do. I'll just do the gold at the end. That makes the most sense. Just because. And it's dripping off. Totally fine. That's what I wanted it to. And as you see, and this is why we wanted to put down a clear layer first, is so that it helps that become more fluid and gives us that movement that we want with the resin. If you didn't have that layer down, it's not going to give more of the fluid motion that you're looking for. I was like, what other color am I missing? This one. And as you see, I went different pattern because I wanted to give us a little variety. I didn't want the same exact thing. Ah, my star stick is falling. Let's see, what color do I want over here? I think we'll add just a little bit. Y'all. Okay. Whew. About had that everywhere. Luckily, I have a silicone mat. So that would have been on the silicone mat and everything, but I just didn't want to lose our resin from a resin standpoint. These are cool. Yes. I like them. I do. And as you see, the gold is not staying all in one spot, and that's okay. I don't want it to keep a full fluid line in between our colors. I want it to kind of give that gap wispy, which we are gonna hit with some heat in a minute, and that's gonna help move that too around. I didn't want it to stay stagnant, basically. Those are really pretty. I'm really loving them, for sure. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try something a little different with this one. And put a little bit of red in the center. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of this teal in the center. And I'll let it just kind of keep growing itself out. You have to be careful with these medicine cups because they do get a little topsy-turvy with your stir sticks in them. Not sure how this is going to look, but we'll see. I'm getting super topsy-turvy with some of them. Those are looking so cool. I love it. So it's like going weird directions. That's okay. And we're ending up with more resin on this than we're definitely going to need, but I want that. Now the Cast and Craft should help some of these colors come out, and it won't be so white. And stagnant. It's going to give us more of this bursting of color. It's pretty cool, but I do want to have our edges fully covered. So I'm a little bit worried that that's not happening. But we'll add a little bit of this, and then when we get our heat gun out, that's going to also shift that some. I think that's kind of cool looking. We're just gonna follow suit and do the same over here, but obviously different color order. I'm gonna end up with extra resin in our cups, and since they're gonna just tip over on us, I'm just gonna do kind of this thing where I just get it onto the tray below. Also, I'm noticing, you know, get some of our edges done. Again, not overly concerned. Just trying to get some of that off of there. And then I'll stack those up. I'm just going to set these off to the side. I love this tsunami color. It's so pretty. Okay, I'm going to try to set that one up. This one's not going to hold. It has become topsy-turvy. So we'll just put the extra in our tray below, and that's just fine. As you can see, the bubbles, now that we've added the colorant, we have done the mixing, all those bubbles that we had created are pretty much gone, which is what you wanted, right? So that's why I don't like typically stress over them. That's too early of a stage to stress, I guess. Crimson red. Looks a little like blood maybe dripping off of there. That's a little odd, morbid, but you know, this one's doing something kind of weird. I'm like, what do you got going on over there? But like, what is happening? I don't know. Okay. 3 colors done. Oh, our cast and craft. Trying to get away from us. This is turned out really light. A very light green. We clearly aren't 100% level because this one's rolling this way and this one's rolling this way. This one looks really good. That's doing pretty good. That's one thing you gotta be careful of. I just dripped on my one there, and it's gonna change that design a little. Let's push you back in there. As you can see, like, I scraped these cups. Granted, they're not going to be reused, but I scraped them pretty good. Okay. Let's add a little bit of blue. Shimmer. Let's add a little bit of gold. Shimmer. Shimmer my timbers. And I'm going to put a little bit of tsunami in the center. And then we're going to do some casting craft. And I'm going to use a different tool to do a design on it here in a minute. So I'm just letting this pretty much come all the way through. Casting craft is pretty heavy, so it's going to definitely sink through the alcohol ink. And then it might sink some of the micas. It may not have as much weight as the micas do, so you may not see it, you know, blend as well. But crafting craft is pretty heavy of a material, a mixture that you're adding in. So it should, in theory, sort of sink itself, which is cool if you're doing like blooms, which I've done. So check out that series. And we'll do more soon. Now that we're coming into warmer weather, makes a big difference. Okay, I do want to add a little bit more gold as I'm seeing this like kind of shift. I'm just gonna, oh, it's getting thick. It's getting real thick, y'all. Getting super thick. This one doesn't really need much. I could do that. I was like, yeah, not gonna do that. I changed my mind. All right. Which I wanted them to thicken before I start adding the heat gun to them, because I don't want to manipulate and have it flow too much and then just all be a hot melded mess. We want that to thicken with somewhat separate colors defined for sure. We got tools of hot mess over here. I'm gonna do kind of a funky thing here. Just because I love this color. And it's getting so thick, it's having a hard time coming off of my tool, even though I have quite a bit on the tool. So that tells me for sure we are hardening up here. We're thickening, and we are running out of time, folks, running out of time. So gonna just get my containers empty, and then we're gonna hit these with a little bit of heat and shift them a little bit, and then we leave them alone. Because you gotta not touch. I'm gonna put a little bit of this. It's just so pretty too. I really want this side, and I think I'm gonna move some of the resin over to this side, so I'm not worried about it being the way it is. Okay, come on. I just want to mix this in a little bit because I want our colors to, you know, not be all in one area. I definitely will use that tsunami again. I definitely will use this blue mica glitter, this chameleon mica. Let's resin. Those I love. The golden is pretty too. And I love that sugar plum, but of course that one's dry. I hope I have another one of it. Okay, so I'm going to grab another paper towel with some rubbing alcohol to wipe my gloves off before I pick up my heat gun. And then let's hit these with some heat, folks. Make sure our cord is out of the way. And as you can see, little bubbles are popping. And it's not moving much. I'm going to go a little stronger. There we go. And I have to get that piece of the silicone off because it's too thick in that spot. And I am making sure that we have run off all edges. I don't want to end up with a funky edge with no resin on it. So I'm ending around those edges just to make sure. I should have stabilized this one a little bit more. Make sure these edges are good. I really like how this one is even turning out. This one I think got the most resin on it, so it's definitely got all edges. And it turned out more gold than the purples, which is funny. Okay, let's see here. We've got some things we got to handle. This is the problem with that not mixing very well. So we got to get that out of there. Otherwise it's going to make it probably be too thick in that area. Whoop. Yeah, remember that's not a very secure. I like kind of this starry kind of look. And it's still fluid enough, it's gonna keep moving along. So I'm not overly worried that, you know, I've now manipulated it and it's gonna create a divot where I manipulated it, because it's still fluid enough that it's moving itself around and filling in. I'm not worried if these chunks end up in the tray below, just because I think the tray will be thick enough that they'll be fine. But I'm worried on the coasters that they'll thin out on the top here so much that then that will become a sharp piece that we're having to deal with. So let's do, I want to see if we can get any of these other colors to pop in here. Might not. They might have all runneth off. They ran away. And I'm just wiping my tool after each one on this one just to give it a cleaner look. I got a little bit of the coloring. Not fully, but yeah, there's a bubble over here. Gotcha. Gotcha. I actually really am liking, I mean, all of them, but I truly am liking this one and this one. I am going to rotate and stabilize that one a little bit, which it's funny because I'm going to be moving them. Silly me. Silly. I forgot I had this little bit of clear. I'm going to put just a smidge in the center of this one to see if it will get down to some other colors in there, or it might just end up being white in the middle, which is fine. And then we'll finish emptying this once I move these to the other tray. So, what I didn't plan great for was, I got my tray dirty anyway, didn't I? Silly. Okay. So, I'm just going to go ahead and set up 4 new stations over here so that I can just grab them by the side really quick and plop them down. Because again, we're not worried about their sides. So I'm not worried about what they look like, but do want to get them moved over. And they're going to keep dripping. That's just part of the course. And I'll show you guys this tray here in just a second. It's a hot mess, but it's okay. I don't know if I'm going to regret this or not, but I am going to go around each one, and I'm just going to rub that resin around the edges. I don't know if I'm going to regret that. I'm going to regret it from the aspect that my gloves are now a hot mess. Nice thing too about being on this tray is I'll be able to move this off to the side and cover them. I will cover them with my handy dandy netting that is used typically at like a picnic, keep bugs out, or a barbecue, keep bugs out of your food. And what we'll probably end up doing with these is we'll probably just paint pen over the sides anyway. So I'm not overly worried about that. I had seen this when it was on the other tray. Let's not have y'all touch. No kissy kissing. So what I'll probably, like I said, what I'll probably do is end up paint pinning a solid color around the edge. So it's not going to really matter, but you know. Alright, glove change. This is going to require a glove change because I'm not even going to attempt to clean those gloves up. So let's go ahead and had a peanut moment that my phone was not recording and I was going to cry, but we're good. Alright, glove change. Now I'm going to move these to where they are going to finish curing. I'm going to fix this little bump of that magenta that is on there. Maybe if I can get this glove on. My gracious. Okay, got it. Okay. Let's get this little guy out. I think the other one is small enough. Okay, so I'm just going to move these off to the side where they're going to finish curing. And we'll come back and probably, I mean, truthfully, these should be almost fully cured in about 4 to 6 hours. So we could come back and check them then. Look at our tray. It's a fun, fun, fun. I'm going to leave these just upright, not connected to each other, the ones that got resin on them. That way they can just be used for mixing or the same exact thing that we just used them for. I do want to try to get this resin to move around a little bit, and I want to add this bit of clear in if I can get it out. It is very thick, but I do want to try to move that around a smidge. And I'll show you what we're going to do to try to get that to roll around a little more. Let's finish getting as much as I can out of here. Out. I love these colors, actually. I was a little worried. I'd probably try to not have 8 colors next time. Maybe 6 would be ideal. So really then you only have 5 colors because of your casting craft. And then really only 4 colors because the gold, or I would do silver potentially. I do like a metallic. I think the metallic just helps give such a nice variant to it. Okay, I do believe I've got about as much resin as I can into here. I'm going to just scrape that off as much as I can. Okay, so let's wash hands. Well, not really wash hands, but you know. Some rubbing alcohol on a paper towel. I don't even know why I closed my rubbing alcohol. I never do that. Alright, paper towel with some rubbing alcohol. Alrighty. I'm going to put our heat gun on full force. Get this resin warmed up. So that I see it moving like that. It's like a nice cool design in there. And you'll notice that it's trying to repel off of the areas it's not in already. I'm going to try to force it in those areas momentarily. And you do a little bit while you're heating it like this. Okay, shifting it, making little waves and ripples. That's helping for sure. But then we're going to just old-fashioned tip our mold. And you're going to play a little bit of the game that, like, you got to watch the bottom where you're tipping to, that you don't end up going over. Whoa, this is going to be beautiful. I do believe. So we're just, whoops. That's okay. Gives us more gravity. But we got to be careful when we come down to the whatever side is downward, that we don't let it start running out. So it's kind of a little game. But we had to get it fluid enough to start doing that. And then we'll use it, we'll use a tool to get some of the edges more. I'm just trying to get this big gap right here. But I gotta watch this bottom edge. Ah, see? See? I played that one a little bit close. Like, can y'all pull more in there? I'm fine with you going to that corner. It's like waiting for gravity to do its magic. If I had an extra hand, I would maybe just blast it with a little heat. It's going to be a thin layer. This tray is not going to be done by any means, because we can't leave it this thin. But it looks really pretty the way that is done. And then I'm just going to take my little tool here and finish bringing this kind of over to the edge. And then we're going to use the heat gun again, and we're going to blast it into these areas that need it. And hopefully that will get us enough of a thin layer across the bottom that we've got a thin layer at least created, and then we can add to it. And truthfully, I'm probably going to add just mainly clear to it when we do, because we've got such a pretty pattern and I want this to be our top anyway. We might add a little bit of colorants, but mostly clear. I'll probably add a little bit of colorant just to give us a 3D look and give you that really in-depth look, which will be really cool. But I love what the pattern is doing, so I don't want to lose that. I am going to spray this with just a little bit of rubbing alcohol. It's going to make it look textured as well with the micas and the rubbing or the alcohol ink. But I'm fine with that for this particular project because, like I said, it's not done. So I'm good with us giving it that look on this layer. And because this is so thin, and the resin is already starting to kind of cure up, it is definitely not wanting to move very much, which is fine. I just wanted to get a layer, and I've got a couple of spots that are resisting the resin, so we're going to just move this over here and help it along. It should basically bring itself all together and self-level. But we don't want an empty spot where the tray is resisting the resin, because then we could end up with a hole and it continue to resist it, which it's going to be right in this area that's going to be this problem. See how it's just The more I blow, it's just resisting it more and more. That's going to be our problem spot for sure. For sure, for sure. Like, I don't know why you are being so resistant of this spot. And if you see me doing this, it's just I'm trying to connect the gaps, basically. I'm trying to get the resin to fill those gaps in. We've got this really cool wave going right here. This side just might have to have more resin in it when we get to that point, to the next layer. It just doesn't seem, it's poofed up enough that it's pushing, the resin isn't, or the tray, this isn't a low spot, it's a higher spot, so it's just kind of running off the top of it. But we're going to do that to try to help, which I think that might have done it. We could also just try to get a little bit of the extra resin from our other tools and so forth, just put in over here. And like, I can scrape a little bit of that up and off. It's not much, but it's something. So then we'll cover this as well, so that no little bugs try to hop in it. This probably is not going to take super long for it to be cured up. Again, though, it's going to take several layers, so this is not anywhere near done. We're going to have more layers to be added and such. All right, I think that I have messed with it enough. We're hitting that point where you got to just stop and leave it alone. So we're at that point. So I'm going to move this out of our way. While that resin is wet, I went ahead and wiped it off my tray because it will come off easy that way. That is beautiful. This is going to be really pretty. I'm excited for it. Huh. This is something I did not account for. Put it there for now. It's not where it's gonna stay. Okay, so cleanup. Essentially, we have our 3 mixing cups and we have our tools, which they're getting so sticky and just a mess. So I'm gonna take paper towels and rubbing alcohol, and that's what's gonna clean these all up. So let me just grab my bin of paper towels. Them closer to us. Okay, so this one I've been using to wipe my gloves. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick wipe of my tools. It's not going to get much off, but it's going to get some of this off and make it a little bit better the next round. So as you can see, it's just get as much of that resin off as you can, and that is fine. You could wait for it to cure. These are covered in like a thin layer of silicone. I find though, if I wipe them off with the rubbing alcohol, that's easier than waiting for the resin to cure. If I wait for the resin to cure, it leaves a thin layer of the resin on it, and I find that then makes the tool's life less long. Whereas if I do it like this, these tools should last a really long time because they're fully wiped off and clean before it cures. But we were kind of running against the clock because that resin is definitely, I'm having to put a lot more elbow grease in than I normally do on these to get them wiped off. And that's not my last wipe. This has quite a bit of the rubbing alcohol on the paper towel right now, so it will help break that resin down. But because I'm using the same paper towel, I definitely will need to hit these again just to make sure that we get them all clean. This one has lots of colorant on it, which is going to be kind of a pain to get off. And you want that off because if you don't, the next thing you stir with this stick is going to add that colorant to it, which would be fine if that's what you want. But you know, if that's not the color you want, then by golly. Trying to use the part that didn't have colorant, but it kind of came through, just to give these a quick wipe down. I basically try to use the paper towel as much as I can to literally, you know, it's not doing any extra good. And when it's this much of resin in your cup, it's gonna take several paper towels. So if you can get at least a layer of that resin out with an already gross paper towel, guess what? That puts you a step closer than you were. Alright, keep going. And I use this rubbing alcohol like, what do I want to say? I've lost the word, y'all. Generously. I use it extremely generously. With your silicone cups, if you had mixed A and B in the same cup, so our big cup in this situation, we could flip it upside down, let that resin run out onto the silicone mat, and then just peel it off. And that works typically, but I scrape my cup so much to get as much of the resin out as I can to add to the project that, honestly speaking, when I tip it, it doesn't create much of a flow, and then it creates that thin film of resin on the silicone, which I don't like. So, henceforth, why I do the wiping out. I am going to clean my mat a little bit where the resin was on there. So, get that off. Alright, we're almost done, y'all. The weighting and this are my least favorite parts. I hate cleaning things up. The silicone can just air dry from getting wiped out. Like, there's no special thing. This is going to air dry pretty quickly. And then I can put them in their little case that I keep them in. So, that's nice. Pretty handy to do that way. So we just keep rolling. I think I'm going to try to figure out how to put a ring light on this, or set up a ring light over there in that corner and move this light that I kept bumping. Just looking ahead. I think this one was pretty well done, but we'll give it one wipe down, one last wipe down. And you notice, like the last time I did the outside too, because resin drips on the outside, and you want to get all that resin off. But these will just dry, and they're about dry as we're wiping them out, so I never worry about going back over them and doing a dry. These gloves are pretty well shot, so I'm just gonna strip them off. And so forth. Also, my rubbing alcohol, it's in an Equate brand container. If you haven't watched other series, you won't know this. If you have, you know this. It's in an Equate brand, but it is Amazon Basics rubbing alcohol, because Equate has the best nozzle, and they still do have these types of bottles. I saw them literally a few days ago at Walmart. So definitely pick up the bottle for the spout, and then Amazon Basics for refilling yourself. All right, think we are set. We will let these set up and then we will come back and see how they look. Hope you guys are enjoying this series and stay tuned. Bye.